Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
For the second.
It's the Audit and Control Committee meeting for April 18th. If everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes from the previous meeting or look over them, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And a second? Aye. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Carried. We'll take all sorts of ayes. Privilege of the floor. Is anyone here this morning to address the committee?
David.
We can do this one first?
We can.
Okay.
Come on down. We'll move into our first resolution. So resolution number 94-24 is authorized use of Chautauqua County 2% occupancy tax reserve funds for removal of damaged steel dock structures from the Dunkirk Harbor.
Good morning, I'm David McCoy, Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator. I work within the Department of Planning and Economic Development. Was under the impression that somebody from the city of Dunkirk would be here today. Unfortunately, I don't see them.
They stood you up. They stood you up.
Well, it's an unfortunate situation. I think looking at the way this has been handled, being referred back to committee, should give us some time to work it all out. So I guess we'll just send it back again.
So it's your recommendation to just kind of keep it in a discovery type area. You're still working on it and you don't want it to move any forward at this time.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Lake Erie Management Commission was approached by the city of Dunkirk in 2022 for assistance with this. And of course, the LMC doesn't have a large budget, but Dunkirk didn't know what it was going to cost, and we asked for a proposal so we could write a contract. I mean, we voted and approved to fund them at that time around $5,000. Unfortunately, the contractor that was in the harbor set sail. They weren't able to get the work done, and it just nothing happened. They approached us again last year for help. We asked for a proposal. They provided that. We scraped together the original $5,000 that we'd offered, plus another $7,000 from our capital account, for a total of $12,000. Wrote a contract with their proposal, the supporting documentation, and they signed it. And then in November, the contractor came to town and they did the work. And they billed us, we paid them for what we were obligated to pay them, $12,000, but unfortunately the bill was much larger. So how all of that transpired on their end, I'm not sure.
Dave, looking at the project, could someone have looked at the project and said, 12,000 isn't going to cover this? I mean, you know, we need 112,000. You know, was that such a vision? So, you know, sometimes when you look at a vision or a project or anything, some common sense might come into play. The numbers are a lot off. How did it get so off?
Yeah. You know, just an unfortunate situation. I think there's some regret on everybody's part at this point, but you know, the LMC did do, I think, what was expected of them. You know, Dunkirk's a partner of ours up there. The waterfront is incredibly important to everybody, generates a lot of revenue, and certainly it's an improvement. I'm sure we'll work through this.
Yeah, good, well said. Any questions?
Well, David, just a couple of comments. Look, I'm all in favor of trying to help the city of Dunkirk with this bill, because it does benefit the county, as you mentioned. But, and I don't have the figures right here in front of me, but the bill came in for $107,500 or thereabouts.
Yes.
Okay, the county tentatively agreed to help them to the tune of like 50%. I think $50,000 was our share, or thereabouts.
In connection with this resolution.
Yeah.
Not previously. You know, our offer was,
Yeah, with this resolution here.
yes.
But honestly, there have been some concerns about this. When the folks from Dunkirk were here last month, apparently there wasn't any real written contract. And again, I don't mind helping the city out on this because it does benefit the county. But toward the end of their presentation, they talked about trying to negotiate and reduce the bill further. So I'm not sure where we stand, you know, but I think we need, I definitely think we need more information on this before we can do anything with it.
I agree with that perspective.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions for Dave this morning? Not seeing any. Thank you.
Thanks.
At this time, we'll go to proposed resolution number 2 is amend the 2024 budget for buildings and grounds.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone today?
Good.
Just fine.
Good. Josh Rothwell, Assistant Deputy Director of Public Facilities, Buildings and Grounds. This resolution we have today is for putting funds into my working budget for some security upgrades and updates in the HRC building. It's going to be two doors, frames with glass windows and new security scramble pads on the first floor, public defender's side, first floor OFA side, a scramble pad entrance, employee entrance off of the BOE entrance on the HRC building, and another one just down off the edge of if you came in the DMV entrance right to the left, right there by the ATM machine. The reason for this is security, employee safety, and just trying to keep wanderers out of places they shouldn't be. We've had some issues with people sleeping in hallways in the break rooms. Had an issue with a director on the first floor of the HRC building late at night. Somebody was in the building, fell asleep, was in the building wandering around at 7 o'clock at night. So just trying to eliminate some of those potential problems.
Questions, comments?
This money is where's Jen's not here.
Out of the fund balance.
Yeah, it's coming out of the fund balance and being added to the working budget to get it done this year.
I want to follow up on that.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Jess, so this is coming out of the fund balance, as you just mentioned. Have you checked your budget? Is there any accounts that you have that this could have come out of? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm very reluctant to take
Okay.
funds out of the fund balance unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay. Yeah, we looked into the
All your accounts?
yeah we looked into the accounts.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
getting some assistance. Thanks, Kitty.
We keep the working budget pretty tight that we use. So
Your operating budget?
Yeah. So when things come up like this that come up that aren't budgeted for, I had spoken with Kitty and we thought that was the way to go.
You go ahead.
Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. Yes, it was at my recommendation because this was an unplanned budget item that there was, this request. The county executive was in favor of moving forward with this project from a security standpoint. I will add, to Josh's comments that our NYMER insurance representative been here recently, just doing his annual walkthrough with Dennis, and he did point out that the security for the types of services that we provide out of the HRC building is an area where he strongly mentioned that security in that building would be recommended. I'm not going to say that it would change our insurance premiums, but he did call out that security in that building could be warranted.
It was a deficiency as far as the insurance.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't write it up as a deficiency, but he
okay,
called it out that we do have for the services that we provide out of that building. He was, I guess, maybe surprised that we didn't already have security there.
And at that time, after Dennis had talked to myself about that, we met with Noel Gutman, safety guy, security guy, met with JD as the security guy, court security, and we looked at the options. We walked around with the contractor, with the door company and the scramble pad company. And the scramble pad company, the guys actually, that's what they do with security. And this was the best option for securing the building up. And I don't want to say that like this is part one of a project, but the long-term goal that I have with that building and these parking lots and the campus itself is trying to create more of a one point of entrance, one point of access. Right now that building has multiple entrances that people can just walk in and could walk down through OFA, they can walk into the public defender, which those are services that are there for the people to walk to. But if they can literally get to people's desks, like they can, so somebody can just walk in and go right into, say, Susie Smith's office or whatever. So we're trying to eliminate some of that.
Yeah. I mean, additionally, in terms of, the proposed use of fund balance, it's relatively early in the year, so it's a little early to identify surpluses elsewhere in the county-wide budget. So, and as you know, there was not we did recently in the COVID years add a contingency line item to the budget, but that hasn't been the practice of the, for many years, with the idea that if something unusual does come up, the legislature would consider it and utilize fund balance for those unusual items that come up during the year.
Okay, and Kitty, you just touched on it. We are 1/3 into the calendar year. Josh, you do have a lot of different accounts in public facilities. But Kitty, you think it's too early to identify any potential surpluses in any of his accounts that
I mean,
this money-
definitely within buildings and grounds, like Josh said, I do know that they generally, they don't add extra in their budget for really unforeseen. I mean, what I'm saying is like they keep it pretty tight.
Okay.
They do budget maybe a little bit for just general maintenance through the year. That might be, things that come up, but that's not to the level of this. It might
Okay.
be a couple extra $1,000s. For unknown maintenance, but generally their budget is utilities and, HVAC maintenance, and that's about it.
Yeah, unless
Okay.
it's something that I've planned for, and then I would put a capital request project in for it.
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
So, you'll have to forgive me for, I haven't looked into this. Where are we at with surplus from the ARPA funding?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe that generally all the funds that have been appropriated, so to speak.
I think the back crowd here answered that for you, thank you.
I have a couple questions. So one of my questions you answered through some other conversation is that, I was curious about other alternatives and other surveys that could be done or other things that could be improved to cover this that we already have in place? But it sounds like you kind of did the walkthrough with the security division and the sheriff's department and also other individuals. And it was gathered that there is some extra thing that is needed. The extra thing being these lock devices on the doors and stuff. Would you classify this as an emergent need and we need to do it today? Or, you know, you did say that you have future projects that you want to do in that whole building. Would it be better to categorize it all in a capital improvement project over there and go through the proper, you know, or a different method? You know, next year it could be another emergency situation that you feel
Yes.
that these doors needed also. I'm not, let me finish, you know, so it sounds like the whole building it could be studied in the sense that, you know, I don't want to put a Band-Aid on one thing when we really should have done the whole thing, you know what I mean? So that's my concern is all too.
Yeah, and it's a great question. So this is something that we think that it needs to be addressed sooner than later. We actually had the director I was talking about had to actually call the sheriff's department the one night for unwanted individual in the building. And with that walkthrough that we did, we looked at multiple different scenarios, like if you blocked off a hallway here and you didn't add the other one here and things like that. And like I stated, the guy from Casco, Wally, that does the scramble pad system here for the county, the door control systems. He's an expert in security. That's what he does. They do hospitals, they do mental health institutions, they do all kinds of public facilities. And that was the recommendation between, you know, security, members from the sheriff's office, myself, our engineering, like we looked at the blueprints, we decided that was the best way of going about it. And back when they were doing these parking lots, that was what they were trying to do, is make the campus more of a one entry in each building, you know, for the public, just for the safety reason. So doing this work now is not going to change anything, or maybe quote like take a step backwards or whatever with the future vision that I guess that I'm trying to get over there.
Well, they also have that insurance issue too, that's come up.
Yeah, I
so.
mean, our insurance rep really was pointing out it's a liability for us. So every day that we don't have some security there for it, it's a liability for us.
It should be
for us.
addressed.
I think so personally. That's my personal opinion.
Please tell me that those folks that were found sleeping weren't county employees?
No,
Okay.
not county employees.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
PJ.
If I could, just to elaborate on this, one of the things, just to understand the severity, we had somebody that was actually, what's considered a high-profile case here in Chautauqua County, was on the front page of the paper. Gentleman came in dressed in makeup on his face, was sitting in one of our break rooms with the lights off at the end of the day, and startled several of our employees.
Under a table.
Under a table. So we realized that there's a tremendous amount of access. As we said, we have child support, we have multiple agencies where we could have people in. Uniquely enough, county government or governments in general have always been targets. This building is very secure. We realized over in HRC, we're pretty wide open. When you get to some of the upper levels, once you get off the elevator, there's a scramble pad before you can access any of the offices. But when you look at the first and second floor, we don't have that. Especially, we can't deny access to the Board of Elections office. But once you get that hallway has complete access to the rest of the building. So, again, as we looked at this, again, just as you said, Terry, we don't like to go into the fund balance. If we put this off and, waited until the end of the year and saw what we have, I'm sure we could, find, savings in DPF where we might be able to, fund that. But when we look at the safety of our employees, that's really how we found this. And then now with the NYMER report that, we have an increased liability, that's something that, is very critical, to myself and our employees.
We were very conscious too when we did our walkthrough. Like right now, you can walk in there and you can go in the stairwell and go to any floor in the building and just you can't get in from the stairwell to the floor, but
You're talking about HRC.
correct.
Okay.
So you can walk in the basement level,
Yeah.
open the stairwell door, and, you know, there's multiple things that happen in that building.
The
with-
entrance by the Board of Elections.
Yeah, or even in the DMV, walk down the double door
Okay,
hallway
yeah.
and up the other side, so either way.
Yeah.
But we paid attention, you could still, the public will be able to access the bathrooms, the drinking fountains, like any, it's not limiting anything within the building, but
Why does the DMV send everyone through the building and not use the door that's to the exterior?
they come in the main doors and they go out the side door, is how they do that.
So that door could be eventually switched to an in and out also,
Yes. And
which
that's,
could make sense, right?
yes, yes, that's part of the thoughts long-term, in that, putting, what we have set up in this plan, putting that stuff in that place does
Yeah.
turn to that.
That's a public access point that it needs to be open,
Yes.
And so, and same with the Board of Elections, but those
Correct.
certain areas can be blocked off.
Right.
The other individuals visiting, the other departments in there can go through a proper way to get in, and there can be a person that would be able to allow them access,
And
that
they do,
would be-
on the
yeah.
second floor, there's a sign, check in at the second floor, whoever you're there to see comes, greets you, there's a little meeting room and a interview space right there.
Yeah, I'd like to see that this, instead of being another emergent situation next year, that you consciously work on that project and put it in front of the planning board and, go through those proper channels so that it can be addressed and done so properly, right? And since, I don't mean this is improper, but it is, where you pull money out of the balance, where it's it's a process of, it's a project that it really isn't going through any other formal process except for us. And, thankfully, we're seeing the security issues, and it sounds like most of us are in agreeance of it, which is great. And, but I also want to make sure that we are addressing other issues that are outstanding, and also it's done so correctly. Questions, comments?
Dan, I used to work in the hall clothing building. It is pretty easy access there, so,
Yeah.
additional security is needed there.
Sure, agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment that, although I understand the desire to have the entire issue studied and come up with a full proposal, I also recognize that we have identified a security risk that places our employees as well as the public in potential jeopardy, and we've discussed that in public session. So I believe that delaying this action would be inappropriate.
Agreed.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Joe.
Next proposed resolution, number 3, is amend the 2023 capital project account DPF large equipment.
I'm also gonna speak on behalf of DPF for that. Josh Rothwell, Deputy Director of Public Facilities, Buildings and Grounds. This resolution is just to, transfer the money that DPF received from the sale of used equipment in the Auctions International. The equipment was sold, and this was this $267,339 was the amount of money that DPF got for said equipment, and the plan is to utilize that towards purchases of the new equipment that they plan on buying this year.
Good. Any questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Next proposed resolution, number 4, is the affirmation of determinations in relation to reduction of infiltration and inflow in the Portland Pomfret Dunkirk Sewer District.
Easy for you to say.
Good morning, Matt Olbeck, Director, Portland Pomfret Dunkirk Sewer District. This resolution is just reaffirming the determination that was passed back in 2022, and it's just another step in the process we have to do to get closer to getting this project started and finished. Just reaffirming that it's in the best interest of the public to get the project going, and I believe it is. I mean, we got infiltration, and if we have infiltration, we have exfiltration, so.
A lot of processes to any of these projects, and a lot of paperwork, and a lot of procedures, and I can understand this is just one of the multiple pieces that are in place.
Yeah, this is relatively one of the easy ones.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Proposed resolution number 5 is authorize an application to the New York State Office of the State Controller in relation to the repair and replacement of apparatus and equipment of the Portland-Pomfret-Dunkirk Sewer District.
As the district would have to borrow money for the project, and we have to have the blessing of the comptroller to borrow money. Even though the money's from EFC, a 0% interest, the comptroller's application has to be filled out and they have to approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that I have worked closely with Matt and the county attorney's office in preparing this because of the legal implications of dealing with the state controller these days. But I believe that this has been prepared very soundly, very thoroughly, and believe me, I've reviewed it numerous times in excruciating detail, and I think we've come to a point where we have a very sound application that'll be presented to the state controller.
What are we repairing and replacing? I mean, if it multiple things,
Yeah.
a couple specific things, or
There's meter pits, a meter pit, manholes. Most of it is sewer line repair. Some repair, digging up and replacing sections. A lot of it is CIPP, slip lining, basically put a liner in it.
is this the type of a project that you're gonna do what you can with the funds you have, or if you come up short, you're gonna need more, or if you have too much, you can do more?
Let me see. The 1,612,000 is estimated by the engineers.
Right.
If it comes in over that, I think the project, the way things have been stated, can't be done. Am I right, Pierre, by saying that?
We have a difference of legal opinions on that subject, but the expectation is that the engineers, understanding the current cost of construction and this type of work, have not underestimated their cost in this project. And so we anticipate that the cost will come in under the engineer's estimate. We will be able to propose, if we choose, to do additional work if it's significantly under the engineer's estimate. That's where the difference of legal opinion arises. So we'll have to face that question if and when we get to that point.
Okay, I know there's always some of those hidden things in there, because it happens.
And we are getting some grant money. We've been awarded $399,250 so far. We've applied for another. That grant came out and said they're offering up to 50%. So we're hoping for that, and we did apply for congressional funding in the amount of $1 million that we hope to get. They did give us some here in the North District. We asked for 3 million, they gave us 2. We're hoping the same for that district.
Well, good.
And Matt, were we also informed that there's the potential that the WIA funds could be augmented from what was received?
Yeah, that was a 25% grant, and they have now reached out and said there's possibility of getting 50%, so.
That's good.
A lot of things in flux on this project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like it, I've come to learn that, we make these approvals and authorizations on a moving target all the time. And we never know what the real outcome ever is, and, until it's finished. So, any other questions, comments?
Just a question. Matt, is most of this work being done on Route 20? Or
No.
what, where are the projects?
The PPD district is pretty much from Route 5
Route 5,
to the lake,
okay.
from the water tower in
In
Portland
Portland,
to the Fredonia wastewater plant. It's,
east,
yeah.
okay.
Most of this project is in Chautauqua, or Van Buren Point
Okay,
and Shore Acres.
Okay.
Because those systems were from the 30s when the county took them over in 82. And they haven't had much work done to them.
okay,
They just been getting by.
thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Proposed resolution number 6 is the amend the 2024 budget for real property tax office.
Good morning, Kim Moline, Director of Real Property Tax. This is a budget neutral transfer. We're just taking money from one account into another to cover the cost needed.
It was for the cost of what?
To upgrade some office furniture that was falling apart in the office.
Okay. Questions, comments? Pretty straightforward. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
that was easy.
Next proposed resolution number 7 is amend the 2023 budget for year-end reconciliations health insurance fund.
I almost forgot. Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. This is just a reconciliation, some additional adjustments needed for the 2023 budget in the M fund. The additional expenses in the .4, I believe it was the .4 classifications, are being offset by additional revenue that we received. In 2023 was the first year that we were, one of the first years we were fully self-insured, and I had budgeted the stop loss expense, but not the stop loss claims, like revenue that we would be receiving back. So that is included in the 24 budget. So that's all. We shouldn't have that issue next year. But we did have that extra revenue to cover the expenses.
Those revenues, are they difficult to calculate?
It is hard to estimate the stop loss because what happens is once a claim gets so high, it goes, the stop loss insurance will cover it after that. It's kind of like we have a deductible, so to speak, and then after we reach that deductible, then the stop loss insurance will cover it, but it comes back to us like as a reimbursement, so to speak. So we are paying the claims up to the full amount, but then stop loss will send back to us the amount over the limit. So it's hard to say how many claims will, go over that threshold. Probably after a couple of years, we'll have a trend
little
that we can
data.
kind of see if there's an average number, but.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution, number 8, is authorize execution New York State Office of Homeland Security funding grant operation Stone Garden for the fiscal year of '23.
Good morning, Jim Quattrone, Chautauqua County Sheriff. This resolution for Stone Garden is a continuation of a grant that's been going for several years. It's primarily on the north part of the county along Lake Erie to continue to patrol for anybody that may be coming across our borders. And this is a grant that covers personnel costs for overtime and fringe costs as well as equipment. And we, not only the sheriff's office, but we have other police agencies that participate with us on those patrols.
Has this funding increased over the years due to added threat, just normal increases just because of inflation?
It seems to fluctuate. So to be honest with you, I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason on how the costs fluctuate. This year, we're actually getting more money, or this grant cycle, we're getting more money. Part of the grant, it's a total of $190,000 for the 3 years. Part of that is split with New York State Police. They handle their own administration of it, and then the Department of Environmental Conservation also has a portion of it. And we get the, I believe it's $92,125.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is number 9, is authorized lease agreement between Chautauqua County and Western New York Public Broadcasting Association for tower space.
Yes, again, this is a somewhat of a continuation. It's a little different agreement. We've had agreements with the Western New York Public Broadcasting Association for several years. They had equipment on our tower down Oak Hill, and there was the old tower had to be taken down, equipment had to be transferred over, and there was some dispute regarding who had to pay for that. At the same time, there was we had equipment that we used to, had an agreement with Western New York Broadcasting that was on Kelly Hill, but that tower actually, we don't use that tower, and so it's the county highway departments that use that tower. So the agreement was this would be a 10-year agreement. The first 5 years there would be no cost to Western New York Public Broadcasting, and then from year 6 on to 10, they would be paying $12,000 a year, and that was an agreement that was made through legal to resolve the issues with Western New York Public Broadcasting.
I have a tendency to look forward to some of those issues, and moving forward, do you feel that a new contract is in place that addresses those issues in case it happens? And are we, Pierre's public comment section, are we are we in jeopardy with some of our other lease agreements that need to be?
I believe we're consistent with the lease agreements with the other partners that we have and that we're working with, and this is in conjunction. When we look at the costs that Western New York Public Broadcasting had involved in moving the equipment from the old tower to the new tower, we felt that it was fair, maybe a little frustrating, but a fair contract and agreement that was made between the attorneys.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Proposed resolution number 10 is to amend the 2024 budget for the Tyler Civil Service License Project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act spending plan.
So the Tyler Civil Serve, this was something that was approved a while back through the ARPA funding. We were invoiced from Tyler Civil Serve for $14,970, but the original agreement was $15,698. The invoice was wrong, but we thought that's what they wanted us to pay, so we did, and then they added the additional 728. So what we're doing is asking to, we initially had closed this out and are asking to reopen it for the additional $728.
Questions, comments? If it was $7,280,000, we might
I
have
would
a
be
question,
concerned.
but 728, I think we're okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Proposed resolution number 11 is the amended 2024 budget to accept New York State DEC grant funds and designate local match for Bemis Point Creek non-point source planning grant.
Hello again, Dave McCoy, Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator, and I have with me today.
Hello, my name is Taylor West. I'm a project manager for the Chautauqua Lake and Watershed Management Alliance.
Last year in June, we came before you to ask permission to apply for a grant from the DEC to study sediment and debris management on Bemis Creek. First time offering, and we were excited to apply, but the application also entailed a commitment of using $5,000 from the occupancy tax reserve for the local match. Happy to tell you that we have won that grant, and we're ready to get started. We've done the environmental review. It's a type 2, so secret really isn't required at this point. And Taylor will tell you a little about our goals and objectives for this project.
Sure. Thank you, Dave. So the work through the Bemis Creek Stream Sediment and Debris Management Plan will assess stream conditions that contribute to flood risk and will provide recommendations to reduce those risks, typically through the removal of excess in-stream sediment and debris. Priority will be placed on the lower stretches of the creek that have been more prone to flooding in the past. So, for example, from State Route 954H, which is the extension of the expressway that then turns into 430 by Long Point, downstream to the mouth. So tiers, so we've separated the project into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is from near the bridge view at the lower Route 430 down to the lake. That area has received some pretty significant flooding back in 2021 and potentially maybe with some of these recent storms, I'm not sure. Tier 2 is from the lower Route 430 bridge upstream to that State Route 954H, which again in 2021 had experienced some flooding from that July event. So those 2 priority areas would receive likely a more detailed level of investigation than the rest of the stream system, which is anticipated to be more of a desktop level investigation. So this was actually the first time that planning grants through the non-point source planning program for a stream sediment and debris management plan were available. So 2023 was the first time that we could secure funding for something like this project, which is exciting that we were able to, there was an opportunity and we were able to seize that and secure funding for this, what will be a beneficial project. So essentially the county would retain the services of a licensed professional engineer to prepare this plan that would conform to the state's stream sediment and debris management plan outline. So if you're interested in seeing the general framework of the plan, the framework that it'll follow, that's on the New York State DEC's non-point source planning grant, or non-agricultural non-point source planning program website. It's a very, very specific outline that this grant will follow. And we're hoping that in future years, the state will open up additional funding lines, potentially through like the Water Quality Improvement Program, the WQIP, to implement these plans.
So this would hopefully follow the same pattern for funding delivery that other DEC programs do. First, they give you money, do an engineering feasibility study to define your costs and alternatives. And once those are known, you can apply to their programs for something that really fits. In other words, funding for implementation. So dredging is something that's a big deal on our lakes. Currently, it's interest in dredging on all five at this point, in our harbors, Chautauqua, of course, Bear, Casadega. But it's something that, it's expensive, it doesn't last forever. So we're really excited about this. One other thing that's driving this forward is FEMA has been remapping areas of the county using the LiDAR technology and some of the computer programming that wasn't previously available. This area has been remapped, and the properties that are near the mouth of Bemis are now in the floodway, which you might just as well be in the creek with respect to flood insurance. So it's like the worst place you could possibly be. That really comes to bear when people try to finance properties, transfer properties, those sorts of things, because flood insurance these days is not cheap. And also, I'd like to add that, we've been working with the Alliance now for over 9 years, watching it grow and develop. And I gotta tell you, these guys are doing some amazing things with data acquisition, monitoring, supporting herbicide and harvesting activities, other things on Chautauqua Lake. We are able to make better informed decisions than we've ever been able to do before. So it's phenomenal working with these folks. It makes my job easier and allows me to do other things on other lakes, because in the past, Chautauqua Lake just sucked all the air out of it. So now we have some opportunities to do some other things, and they're performing well.
Thank you, Dave.
Good. Questions, comments?
It's a 10% match.
It's important to maintain our waterways and things that, over time, things sediment up. If it sediments up in the creeks, it gets washed into the lake. And if you don't ever do it, it poses some issues. So eventually you need to clean that stuff up. So I agree with it, and I think it's some good maintenance. So
I think generally it's less expensive to keep sediment out of the streams than it is to pull it out of the lake.
sure, agreed. Yeah.
One thing too, I'd just like to add was this was the maximum amount of grant money that we were able to secure through this program. So,
Good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Proposed resolution number 13 is to amend the 2023 budget due to 2023 year-end reconciliations capital projects.
Good morning, everyone. Rebecca Worster, Planning Coordinator for the Department of Planning and Development. Today's resolution is to accept grant funding and amend a budget specifically put out last June through the Department of State's Smart Growth Countywide Resiliency Program. It's specifically a grant to support the creation of a countywide resiliency plan that primarily addresses extreme weather risks and vulnerabilities associated with the increase in frequency and severity of storms and precipitation events, sea level rise, storm surge, flooding, drought, extreme heat, or other climate hazards. We think this is a really nice continuation of our hazard mitigation plan that was recently completed. And there will be some overlap in that plan, but the big meat and potatoes that makes this different is that within this resiliency plan, we'll be really focused on projects that will be recommended to the state in this plan for potential funding opportunities. So you just heard about the Bemis Creek project. We're looking for additional projects like that to be included, and then we think this is a queue up from the state. So the state's offering money for planning initiatives. We think in the future there'll be funding for actually implementing those projects that are within the plan. So we're excited to focus on that. We see a big piece of this will include our stakeholders. That will definitely include emergency services, our health department, Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy. I'll probably ask the Alliance to sit on that, and Soil and Water to be a part of this planning process. It's $144,000 and then $16,000 as the match. We have $8,000 budgeted currently in this year's budget for our department for contractual expenses, and then we hope to next year's budget include the other half to implement the plan. And we would be hiring a consultant. We'd be going through an RFP process and following the county's procurement policies on that piece.
What, you know, it says we're primarily addressing extreme weather risks and vulnerabilities. What vulnerabilities are you?
Flooding, we're seeing, you know, a lot of impacts in Lake Erie, in our waterfront communities there with the seishes in Lake Erie and erosion issues involved there, flooding in our streams and waterways. So addressing those type of projects, I think, would be high level.
So it's looking for you're looking for the specific root of the problem. So addressing like whatever it may be, I suppose, instead of the risk of businesses or farmers or things to that nature. So
Right.
These things pose a risk to them also, and they have vulnerabilities. If there's drought and crops are affected, or if there's flooding, then so that vulnerability, you're looking more at the cause of the vulnerability.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Terry?
Rebecca, so what type of projects would we be talking about? Studies or?
It could be a little mixture, you know, strategies, specific projects, or programs that we're going to identify. So,
And you can't identify any programs or at this time?
there definitely are, like I mentioned, our different partners all are working on different things. So
Okay.
this will be help to kind of pull it all together, I'd say, and
nothing-
we'll identify new ones as
Okay,
well.
nothing specifically at this time. You've
No.
got to get that information.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Sounds like it's to be determined, and hopefully we can stay updated to how the project is moving along and what it does identify. So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next, proposed resolution number 14 is the closed capital projects 2023 year-end reconciliations. Yes, close. So the amend one was what we just covered. Or what it, no. Sorry, we're on amend. Come on forward. Amend the 2023 budget due to 2023 year-end reconciliations capital projects. I just like seeing you exercise and keep.
That's all right. I like
Keep moving.
exercise. Okay, so the resolution to amend the 2023 budget for year-end reconciliation of capital projects. There's a few projects here that, as Todd was going through his annual process, needed some amendments. So, let's see. The first one that I want to address is the in the third whereas. I do want to propose some amendments. So the sewer district project was originally budgeted for like 16 million, some $100,000 to be funded by serial bonds. We have since gotten 2 grants. Only one was for $5 million, but there was another grant. So I need to propose amendments to increase where in the third whereas where it says received a grant in the amount of $5 million. the first amendment would be to increase 5 million to 7,972,000. And then in the resolved, the first resolve where it says to be reduced by 5 million, 5 million should be changed to 7,972,000. And then where it says 11,888, that should be changed to 8,866,000. And then lastly, under increase revenue accounts, where it says ESS 8130, 27001.R399.0000, 5 million should be changed to 7,972,000. And the reason for these changes is now that we've received 2 grants, we can reduce the amount that we've planned to issue bonds
What would it change that total to at the bottom? Did you do calculate
to
that?
8,866,000.
Okay, 866. Is that it of the recommended amendments? Is that it of the recommended amendments?
Yeah, I don't have any other amendments, yeah. So.
What I'll do is if we, if someone would like to entertain a motion to amend those, we can amend those and then discuss it as amended moving forward, so.
I'll make the motion to amend according to Kitty's figures.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Discussion on the amended resolution. Kitty, you want to carry us through, or if there's,
Sure. The only other ones that I would call out in particular are you may recall, those of you that were on audit control last year, when we were closing out 2022, we brought to you a recommendation of a couple of projects that were originally funded with serial bonds for 150,000 and 100,000. We had asked about a couple other projects too, where we believe since they were smaller projects, rather than issue bonds for them, and we had a surplus last year, that rather than we requested that you would consider just using the fund balance for those projects instead of issuing bonds, because they were smaller projects and we did have a sizable surplus last year. But and the audit and control committee was in agreement with that, but we neglected to follow up and actually do a resolution for those changes. So that's what the changes are under increased revenues for interfund transfer for 150,000 and 100,000, and decrease proceeds from serial bonds under decreased revenue of 150 and 100,000.
so a comment, I know you have been, staying on top of our capital projects accounts and wanting to close those that needed to be or seem to be looming out there. I noticed there are a few older dates in here, which is a good thing that we can bring those to a close. How was it all together, our capital projects?
The reserve, or?
Well, not in, are we able to close what we can close, and
Yeah, so Jennifer, the budget director, she, went through a review with all departments who have, outstanding capital projects, and asked them to provide her, notify her of any that are closed and are completed and can be closed, and that's the next resolution. So we do that annual review to ensure that if there's any open projects, we understand what the status is and close any that can be closed out. This resolution was just to make some adjustments for different revenues that were realized, but compared to what the original budget was for these capital projects.
these are current ones, and they've yet to make the closure list, but maybe
Yes.
this will help them make the closure list.
Yeah, well, the big sewer district project is still ongoing, but it was just we actually received the revenue in 2023. We received one of the grants of $5 million. So we want to, we were recording that as revenue in terms of how we carry forward the balance of the project. These adjustments are needed to close out the year, and then we just carry forward the remaining balance of the project into the next year.
Other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution, we are on to number 14, closed capital projects fiscal year 2023, year-end reconciliations.
Get to that one, sorry. Okay, almost there, sorry. Yeah, so on this resolution, as you can see, there's several projects that are able to be closed, and any resulting balances that they have would be reconciled through this process and adjusted to the capital projects reserve. I don't believe there's much, but sometimes there's just a little bit when we finally close out the project.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I'm just kind of reviewing the list. There's been a few moving parts. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our discussion or presentation authorizing the MOU with the NYSERDA. Okay.
Good morning, Shannon Fisher, Manager of Airports. As you'll recall, we discussed this about 2 meetings ago, and I was asked to take this back to the Energy Committee, which we've had great discussions, and they also liked the project. But for more information, we wanted to invite Harrison Kim from NYSERDA to present today on the project. Oh, and Jillian. Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
I think you guys can start.
Can you see us?
We can.
All right, great. Harrison is going to pull up a presentation. I'm going to go through the Build Ready program, take you through what we do, who we are, how we go about things, and then Harrison is going to get into site specifics to introduce the project. So my name is Gillian Black. Gillian, I'm the director of the Build Ready program here at NYSERDA. With me is Harrison Kim, project manager in charge of project origination. Next slide, please. The Build Ready program was created by the governor's office and enabled through legislation as part of the CLCPA to find sites and develop renewable energy properties on these sites that the private sector is not addressing. The private sector is not looking at many landfills, old industrial sites, brownfields, old generator sites, closing prisons, old mines, parking lots, because they're too expensive typically to interconnect to the utility grid, or they're too bureaucratic, or for whatever reason. So our program was put together to act like a private developer would within the state authority to develop these projects, de-risk them, and negotiate site control through leases, tax pilots, bringing these sites back onto the tax rolls, providing tax revenue. And we also negotiate, create and negotiate community benefit plans where we can provide capital for local improvements. We work with local communities, stakeholders throughout to determine what types of benefits we can bring to the community beyond the lease payments, the tax revenue, and the green energy production. Next slide. And please stop me at any time if you have questions or comments. So we provide the turnkey development at our own risk using our own budget, our own programmatic budget, to take sites from either a nomination from a municipality or a private entity, or those that we find ourselves. This inverted pyramid on the right follows the typical development process, where we start tackling the most difficult things first at the lowest cost possible. And as we move through and de-risk these big ticket items, we spend more time and money. Part of the process is to secure an agreement with the municipality or the entity who controls the site to give us exclusivity so that we have the comfort level we need to go ahead and spend the time and money. We work across a number of parallel pathways, making sure that the project can connect to the grid at a reasonable cost. We look at the environmental issues, how this project would coexist with existing uses, etc. So we go through this process, and at the end, at the bottom of the inverted pyramid, what we call an auction is a competitive solicitation. So we get this project de-risked and packaged up in an LLC, and then we put it out into or through a competitive solicitation whereby we attract private sector independent power producers to purchase the project from us, finance, build, own, operate, and eventually decommission the project. So let's see. The important piece here is that we've been given the ability to offer an incentive in the form of a 20-year renewable energy credit agreement so that we can pay for these oversized costs. That mechanism is unique to the Build Ready program. We're the only program like this in the country, as far as we know. There is a Tier 1 program whereby large renewable energy projects like large solar, large wind can bid in to secure a REC agreement, but they're competing on price. So we have the ability to offer a more valuable REC to make sure that the project pencils out, financially is successful, and that the private sector will be attracted and build these things successfully and meet their required rates of return. So we're kind of a little skunk works within NYSERDA. We're a team of about 8 people plus a ton of consultants. Next slide. I think I went through a lot of this already, but turnkey development at our cost, these are the types of sites that we're focusing on. Revenue to the landowner and community comes in the form of lease payments, the tax payments. We'll typically negotiate a pilot, typically through partnership with an IDA. And again, we're bringing revenue where there has typically not been revenue in the past. Host community benefits packages, we have a lot of creativity to structure these. We worked with the IDA in St. Lawrence County on our first project to put together a micro grant program for local area businesses to stimulate economic development. But we can get really creative. You know, in listening to some of the things in this session, I heard mention of a match grant, and it's possible we can put funding towards match grants, or we can entertain other needs within the county, you know, at the county level, at the town level, at the airport level, and with other community organizations to really understand what else this project could do. How can we use it as a catalyst to create additional benefits? Next slide. Typically, we're looking for large-scale renewable opportunities. We're looking at greater than 5 megawatts AC. So 5 megawatts would be the nameplate capacity of the project. Anything sub 5 megs would be within the New York Sun program. We're part of the large-scale renewables program here at NYSERDA, so we're looking at larger opportunities. However, we are opportunistic, and we acknowledge that not all sites can support a large project. You know, there's not a lot of landfills out there that can support a 20 megawatt project. So again, I think I covered most of this. We include energy storage in our projects in order to augment the grid, the utility grid, to create additional value. Energy storage in this state does not really work unless you're part of a larger incentive program. So we have the capacity to help fund the energy storage, but what we're really waiting for is the emergence of a statewide energy storage incentive program, which is in the works. We also do carports. We've spent a lot of time mapping all of the parking lots in New York State. This is kind of an aside because we're not really addressing this here, but you never know. We look at solar canopies in order to maintain the utility of the parking lot, and we look to incorporate electric vehicle charging stations where applicable or where it makes sense, and then we can add energy storage so that we're essentially creating a resilient transportation hub. It's pretty exciting, and we've got a handful of these projects throughout the state. Next slide. I'm going to hand this over now to Harrison, but before I do so, are there any questions or comments about the program that I can answer?
I think we're set.
Okay, great. Thank you. Harrison.
So the origination of the Dunkirk Airport project began several years ago through the work of our consultant's desktop analysis. We found ample size on the property as well as some potential interconnection options. After speaking with the previous airport manager as well as Shannon, we've identified a potential opportunity here and had our consultants do some additional screening. What we found is a potential opportunity for a 25 megawatt solar project with battery energy storage at the airport. The main challenge that we found with this particular project is its interconnection. While there was a few different lines available, the main one that is compatible with a project is the National Grid 115 kV transmission line. Through additional feasibility studies, we've learned that in order to interconnect to that line, it requires the construction of a costly protection equipment known as a 3-breaker ring bus. In order to be able to afford this interconnection for a project of this scale, this project did need to be as large as possible. So what we did was reach out to some of the landowners that are adjacent to the airport itself, to the north of the airport, and see if they would be potentially willing to discuss a project with us and really maximize the financial viability of this project. In addition, our GenTie is going down south on Cook Road from the airport itself to some privately owned lands that are visible, if you could see my cursor, to the southwest side of the airport. We don't envision the battery energy component to be on the airport itself. We expect to be using the entirety of the airport as well as property north of the airport by the runway for PV only, and we would like to put our battery energy component off-site in order to maintain, make this project as acceptable as possible to the FAA. And based on these results, this is the initial design that we've come up with for our project. This is what we call a buildable area map, which shows various wetlands and other slope features that are used to determine the overall scope of the project. From there, we had our consultants do the next step, which is a sketch plan. This is how the project would look on the airport site, and you can see the subarrays that are laid out on the south of the airport, to the east of the airport, as well as on the private parcels to the north of the airport. These subarrays will be connected through underground horizontal borings. There will be no interference, no impact to the runway or anything of that sort. We expect this to be connected entirely through the underground, and then going to our Gentai substation from there. In terms of the feasibility studies done to date, Build Ready has completed an ISO pre-application. This gives us the ability to preview the site with the utility early. This is how we've learned of some of the interconnection limitations as well as some of the viability of this particular project. We've also completed a production cost interconnection study, which is highly valuable in determining that the overall value of solar energy at this location is going to be greater than it is in large parts of the state. There are parts of the state that solar energy has to compete in order to take advantage of the very limited amount of interconnection headroom. We call that renewable energy congestion. And in this case, we found that this area is particularly conducive to additional solar generation. We've also conducted additional fatal flaw analysis and code review. This goes into environmental as well as municipal regulations in order to understand what are some of the factors that we need to plan for there. We've also done some engagement with the aforementioned third-party landowners to determine that this is something that they would at least entertain and consider, and they've been nothing but open and agreeable to the project thus far. We've also initiated some discussions with the Federal Aviation Authority regarding a potential project here. We've received some level of support from them, and in terms of the level of concern that they have, because Dunkirk Airport does not have an airport traffic control tower, the risk of glare to the control tower does not exist, and therefore it's a bit more of an acceptable process to the FAA. And as mentioned, we've also drafted an initial project sketch plan that was shown on the previous slide. Moving forward, the Build Ready team does believe that there is a really interesting and potentially viable project here, but we do need to do additional diligence to determine if this would work. We are asking the county to enter into a non-binding memorandum of understanding with NYSERDA so that NYSERDA can initiate these following development activities to further due diligence on the project and determine its viability. Some of the steps that we would take is host community engagement to determine, to engage various stakeholders and community, understand the acceptance of the project, as well as discuss potential host community benefits, as Gillian mentioned, is packaged with the program to catalyze various things that the community might be interested in. We would want to do environmental diligence. This would include potentially phase 1 environmental ESA, as well as critical issues analysis. We would like to commission additional engineering and design to determine feasibility of the project, as well as compliance with standards of the FAA, New York State DEC, and the US EPA, as well as continue to engage these private landowners for real estate and right-of-way access to the Gentai. In terms of, this is all the slides that I have for the actual project itself. Please let me know if you have any other questions about the Dunkirk Airport. I have some example projects of sites that Build Ready has worked on, as well as a few other sites that we've looked at that could go into next. So just to cover these as well, in Chautauqua County, we've looked at a few other sites as a potential option for the Build Ready project. One of the sites that we looked at was Chautauqua County Landfill, where we found that there are significant interconnection challenges associated with a potential project here. But nonetheless, it's a large landfill in the county and something that we were hoping we could develop a project from. Another one that we've looked at that I'm sure you guys are all pretty familiar with is Jamestown Airport. We've identified a potential 60 acres of developable area at first, and discussing this project with the utility, we've identified several significant interconnection challenges with the 34.5 kV subtransmission network in this area, where any project here would require significant upgrades to the substation and the underlying network, which is why we've decided to focus our energy on progressing forward with the Dunkirk Airport project. And then we also have a few of our own example projects that either worked on by Build Ready or through our consultants. One of them is an airport project. This has been worked on through our consultants at TRC. They've designed and permitted this particular one. And similarly to the Dunkirk Airport, the arrays are laid out close to the airport runway. You can see that in this case, they have the arrays to the south and then to the middle, and then they have the Gentai up to the north. This is a pretty interesting project that was 50 megawatts AC, so it's a fairly large project. Another airport not featured on this particular slide deck is the Dalzell Airport in Dalles International Airport. That's another one that TRC, our consultant, has worked on. And that one, I highly encourage you all to take a look at some of the online pictures for that. It does seem like a very nice project. In terms of Build Ready, our flagship project is the Benson Mines project in St. Lawrence County at the Star Lake. It is sited on an iron ore tailings pile, which is great because this is located in the Adirondack Parks area, and Build Ready and NYSERDA was able to get an approval from the Adirondack Parks APA in order to do a set a project here, due to the fact that it would have really minimal environmental impact and a great reuse of land that has already been disturbed. It's about 12.5 megawatts, and the auction process is already underway. We're hoping to secure this one with a developer pretty soon. Another project on our pipeline, and this is going to be the next project that we are hoping to focus on for issuance to the private developer community, is the Caswell landfill. This is in Tompkins County in the town of Dryden. It's about 12.5 megawatts with paired with a 2.5 megawatts of battery energy component, and is sited on a landfill cap with a little bit of land outside of the landfill cap in order to really maximize opportunity here. The full layout is contained within the waste management facility. And while the interconnection Gentai does cross some ag lands, there is no project area over agricultural lands at all.
And I think that's an important point to take away, is that we avoid agricultural districts, agricultural lands at all costs, unless we have to cross it with underground utility lines, or in some cases, if we have to build some utility infrastructure per the results of our utility studies. But by and large, we're really focusing on disturbed land.
And in our case, I'll just add that we did talk about going under the runway to that property on the north, which it looks like you've done at one of the other airports here as well.
Yeah, the one in Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's standard to use the horizontal drilling under areas like that. Or in this case, even when we go across a state route up here to get to the substation, we're going to be using horizontal drilling to get across.
That's good. Thanks, Shannon. And that is it for our presentation. Here is our contact information. Gillian's director, I'm the project manager, and I'd like to open the floor for any additional questions or thoughts from the group.
Anyone have questions, comments, please?
And Dan, just one.
Yep.
Shannon, are there ag districts near Cook Road?
I believe so, but this is
Okay.
just specifically focused on airport
The
property,
airport.
which is non-developable area that we
Okay,
gave him.
or private property near the airport?
Yes.
That's not in ag district?
I'll have to refer back to Harrison on that because I'm
I'd like to,
focused solely on the.
I'd like to
airport
clarify
side.
that none of the private properties we are using are within an ag district.
Okay. So these solar panels will be adjacent to the runways at the airport?
Would you mind pulling the picture back up, Harrison, and then I can point out
Absolutely.
where it is? So right here you can see our runway, and it'll be on this side. I believe it's 20 acres, 30 acres on this side and 40 on this side.
Okay.
And then this is not airport property.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions. So
Yes.
We're investigating this as a potential income source for the airports. That's the purpose?
Yes, that is the purpose. Today's is just to find out if that's even feasible. So
Okay.
they just would like exclusivity to go through with the feasibility study. And so doing an MOU is what we're here to ask for. We will have to come back in the future and talk about lease options. But something that is required by the FAA for us is fair market value, as Harrison discussed in there. And it'd be on an annual basis. So 70 acres at, well, just right now it's probably around $2,000 an acre. We would be getting annually over the time period of the lease, which could be ultimately 30 years on a, what is the first one, Harrison? 20 years is the?
20-year lease with 3 5-year
And
extensions.
then 3 5 years after.
My question is, the FAA is okay with the potential, placement of solar on airports, and that's a general, they obviously have parameters that they have put in place and have probably done the research, but it's, me, I just have a hesitancy of putting a bunch of solar panels near an airport for various reasons. Why create another hazard for a potential accident, right? Someone get veered off the runway a little bit by some wind shear, and next thing you know, you're in some electrical components that are producing electric, and you're like, whoever put those there to begin with, right? So those are the things I think of, and I'm not the expert, so that's where I'm asking that the FAA has done that research, or even glare, when you're landing. And yes, this has been determined to be a good place to put solar panels. Are we going to pick up glare from these things? But I'm sure again that the FAA must have gone through all those potentials. Is it site specific?
This is site specific, but we did go through our Part 163, which is a review that we put through to the FAA, which I do have here today, but they put it back on the owner, basically saying that they don't see any safety risks with this project. The land and also was not purchased with federal funds, so they can allow us to have the rights to that land, and we don't have to go through a land release or anything like that. There will be a solar glare study done as well for pilots. We talked about movable panels depending on the day. I mean, they're willing to make it work however we need to meet all safety standards, because obviously that's our number one at the airports. So we did choose areas of land though that are very ruddy and that we do not propose in our 20-year plan would be developable area. So we don't propose, runways extensions in that direction or buildings in those sites that we would, and we've discussed with FAA keeping them at a certain height limit. And as part of the feasibility study, there's more that goes into that as well. I think, is the solar glare study part of that study, Harrison, or is that further down the line?
It's part of the studies coming up.
Yeah, they're costly, and so we need to execute the MOU before we move forward with any additional work on this project. We just finished a glare study at another airport in Tompkins County. They do have a control tower, and as a result, we've removed modules from areas that would provide glare, and we've shifted the azimuth, the layout, so that the modules are not creating glare on the tower. And what that does is, it removes the danger, but at the cost of solar production and nameplate capacity. But that's what has to happen for safety and co-use. So that's how we run things.
Mr. Chairman.
And I would also like to add that the FAA over the past couple of years have revised their guidance on solar projects, which is why the existence of the airport traffic control tower is so important in considering the FAA process here. FAA has previously required solar glare analysis on all levels, but across their analysis, they found that the impact of glare, the risk of glare caused by solar panels to pilots is not too indifferent from glare caused by water bodies or other naturally occurring elements that may impact a pilot, whereas it may still possess potential impact and risk to airport traffic control towers here. So the FAA policy is to ensure that there is no impact to airport traffic control tower, first and foremost.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna ask this question. So I know there's always a lot of controversy when we talk about the FAA and getting in bed with the FAA. Let's just say that things start taking off for our airports. We are gonna get commercial air service and we're going gangbusters, and Chautauqua County decides to divert some of the money from the solar payments that we're getting yearly, and we're gonna move it into something else. Do we have to jump through the hoops through the FAA, or do we own those panels and can do what we want to with that fund, the funding?
We will not own the panels. That will be all part of this project. So
Right.
there'll be fenced in
Okay.
area. Another thing that we liked about it is that's 70 acres that we don't have to maintain. So they take care of mowing and everything with the panels when it comes to removal in the end. That's all on the project, not on us.
Well, I think maybe I
And-
misspoke. We're gonna be getting a cash incentive from this sooner or later. Is the FAA mandating that we spend that on the airports, or can Chautauqua County decide we're gonna move it to somewhere else?
No, anything that is revenue for the airport has to go to the airports. That's how,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, Shannon, so as far as the revenue, okay, and I realize this is just the study right at this point, but looking ahead,
Right.
won't there be like a pilot program with these folks, or in lieu of tax thing? So the county's not gonna realize tax revenue right away, are they, or are they? It's over 30 years, I get that, but when will the county actually realize tax revenue from the project?
I'm gonna refer to NYSERDA
Gillian?
on that, because I'm unsure on the tax
Or,
dollars.
well, maybe we haven't
Yeah.
got to that point, but I'm just raising
Yeah.
that as
Right.
as a question.
Oh, it's a good question, thank you. So we would negotiate a tax pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, with the IDA, and those proceeds would be distributed in the first tax year after commercial operation of the system. And it would follow the normal split, the ratio between the three taxing jurisdictions. We typically would be paying the IDA fee, which varies somewhere around 1% of the total construction cost. So those dollars go directly to your Chautauqua County IDA and would go towards their operational budget, and then they'll typically use them for years into the future to fund other county economic development initiatives. So there's that revenue stream directly to the IDA for economic development in your county. The second is the actual pilot payment, which is negotiated and levied on the AC megawatt capacity of the system. So if it's a 25 megawatt system plus batteries, it would be X dollars per megawatt. We were seeing those at about $5,000 per megawatt. So what is that, $125,000 year one with a 2% escalator if it's just on the 25% or 25 megawatts, which would then get split between the school district, the town, and the county. So those are the direct financial benefits. The lease payments, as Shannon said, would go to the airport and stay within those operations. Unclear to me whether that would offset other county financial responsibilities to the airport. Would that free up money elsewhere? Don't know, possible. And then we've talked about the host community benefit fund potentially, or a host community benefit package where we could identify direct financial injections to the county and stakeholders within the town and county. So that's where I expressed interest in a matching grant. Could this project create or provide funding that the county could use to secure other funding opportunities, whether it be a DEC, right, in the form of a match grant? Could we do something like that? That gets really exciting, I think. So.
Okay, so your pilots with other municipalities, typically 10 years or 15 years?
Oh, sorry, through the IDA, it's a 20-year.
20 year.
20-year pilot term typically.
Okay.
If you go directly to the 3 taxing jurisdictions, you're limited to a 15-year tax pilot through RPTL 487. And the developers, the owners of these projects, they like the certainty. And then after the 20 years, the value of the energy property would be assessed using the tax and finance model as required by the state, which is a yield capitalization methodology. It just looks at future revenue from year 21 to 35. They would then assess the taxable basis, and normal taxes would be paid on the rest of, right, that value from 21 to 35.
Okay, from 21 to 35, not 21 to 30?
No, well,
I mean, we
the-
talked about 30 before. You're saying the project will be a 35-year project?
So we
20
have
with
an
3
initial
5-year
lease
options.
term of 20 years, and then we have 3 5-year extensions on top of that within the lease. So look, at a certain point, we'll need to negotiate a lease with the county or the airport or
Okay.
whomever. And that is a major step that we need to accomplish before we can go into the NISO interconnection process and before we spend, $800,000 to develop this project as, out of my budget. So right now, we're at the first step, an MOU. We need the MOU executed in order to move forward with our advanced due diligence. Then, before we really spend the money on site plan development, on all the field work, survey, et cetera, we need to get into a lease. And then we execute the lease option agreement. We start paying the airport or the county or whomever is the signatory lease option payments, which is typically 10% of the full lease payment. And we go into that lease option agreement for 3 years. We have it up to 3 years. Meanwhile, we're continuing our development activities. We transfer the project after a successful competitive solicitation. The new owner of the project assumes the lease option payments, all the roles and responsibilities, and then they would execute the option, or rather exercise the option, and begin lease payments prior to construction of the system, and then for the 20 plus 3 5-year extensions.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of
Thanks,
course.
Gillian.
And look, I'm happy to go into great detail on any of this stuff. I just I want to make sure you
Not-
guys
not
are
at this
informed.
time. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. We can geek out another time, I guess.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
There has been a resolution that has been passed out to everyone. Their title is authorized MOU with NYSERDA to conduct a feasibility assessment for the development of a utility-scale solar photovoltaic renewable energy project at Dunkirk Airport. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Carried. Okay.
Thank you very much, Gillian
you,
and
gentlemen.
Harrison, for all the information, and I'll follow up with you after the meeting.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We have a compliance report, and there's a gentleman from Dunkirk that wishes to speak, so if we can take a 5-minute recess, which I could use take a real brief break for a minute, and then we can sit back down. Thank you.
Here's signatures.
just wait a minute now. Good. At this time, we'll reconvene, and the Audit Control Committee is back in session. A couple other items on the agenda today. One is under other. So first, we have a representative here from Dunkirk that's been willing to speak to us about our first resolution that we covered today regarding the authorization use of the Chautauqua County 2% occupancy tax reserve funds for removal of damaged steel dock structures from Dunkirk Harbor. This resolution was referred back to committee in the full legislature on March 27th. So this is kind of more information pertaining to that resolution. So.
Yes. So my name is Elliot Ramondo. I am an attorney here in Chautauqua County. I represent the cities of Dunkirk and Jamestown, which I am having a great time in doing. Thank you for hearing me out today. I'm here on behalf of the city of Dunkirk, specifically today regarding the A&K Marine Resolution. I have passed out two documents to you today, and specifically this addresses how we got to where we are today. And the biggest plug that I hope you take out of this is always hire an attorney when you're doing contracts. So the first document here is a bid proposal from July 5th of 2023. And I will add that I became the Dunkirk City Attorney on January 1st, 2024. So these are documents I've inherited, not that I've created. This bid proposal has...
These documents, can you elaborate a little bit on these particular documents? Where'd they come from and who did create them? You know, you weren't the attorney then. Did an attorney look at these, or were they just created by the city?
Start with the bid proposal.
So these were not created by an attorney. I was informed by Mr. Bobstein, my predecessor for the city of Dunkirk, that he became aware of these documents in December of 2023 when they came in with the bill. But the first document, which is a bid proposal, came in from A&K Marine Construction, looking at the excavation of metal pilings and other diving underwater structures within the Chadwick Bay Marina in Dunkirk to remove those steel pilings. Apparently they are an obstruction for boaters and were causing problems for boaters entering into Chadwick Bay. And by way of reference, the Dunkirk Marina, it's all owned by the city of Dunkirk, but the west side is leased to Chadwick Bay Properties, also known as Pete Smith, while the east side, where the Clarion is still owned by the city of Dunkirk. With that being said, there was a bid proposal to remove these pilings. To my knowledge, this bidding was not done in compliance with New York State General Municipal Law 103 or fair bidding requirements, hence the fact that we don't have a contract, to whereby this bid came in at a rate of $12,000 per day.
Elliot, excuse me.
Yes.
The bid proposal doesn't indicate who the proposal was presented to.
No, it was not presented, it would appear, to the Dunkirk Common Council.
So we don't know if this bid proposal was presented to the city or was presented to the marina operator.
Yes, we are not sure. It does say, for Chadwick Bay Marina West, there is a lot of issues as far as what happened in between these two documents. And the issues are specifically issues of fact. That, if we went through litigation and did depositions of the various Dunkirk department heads, maybe we'd come to a conclusion. But I will say this, is it was not presented to the Dunkirk Common Council as a bid for multiple days. It was presented to the Dunkirk Common Council, who are my clients, as a one-time $12,000 cleanup of their marina.
I got a question. Is this the proposal?
That was the bid proposal, yes.
This piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm in court.
Oh, no.
No.
We're all lawyers right now.
No, I'm just kind of,
You're the prosecutor.
not being the smartest guy in the room, I'm going,
It's kind of
like, I'm turning it over.
You're looking for more stuff.
Thank you.
And a question just on this information. So you said that it was not, New York State bid procedures were not followed. How about the city of Dunkirk procedures?
They were not. The procurement policy was not followed.
Okay.
So in between this, and there's a bunch of documents that I haven't included here, because there was communications between various Dunkirk department heads and this contractor with respect to the cleanup of the pilings, as well as the private operator, Chadwick Bay. Obviously, those communications, if this issue went to litigation, would become a problem As far as my client's concerned, the city of Dunkirk, though, and just by way of reference, General Municipal Law 103, as well as various case law, handles the way that municipal bids have to be done in New York State. Our legal position under the current administration is any type of contract would be declared null and void because those procedures were not followed and there was not a contract done with the Common Council of Dunkirk. That being said, there was work done to the marina, and that work apparently turned into 8 days of work, where I have the other document that I presented to you today, which was the invoice that was ultimately presented to the city of Dunkirk asking for payment. And that was for 107.5. Now, this county legislature, in its wisdom, had previously granted the city of Dunkirk $12,000 for this cleanup, so that was paid over to A&K Marine, which is where that $12,000 is coming from, right there.
But you still have 95,500.
Yes. So my legal position would be if the county was kind enough to offer $50,000 for the city of Dunkirk, we would still not pay that money to the contractor until this, unless this bill was just and duly satisfied to try to get us out of our litigation. It's no secret the city of Dunkirk is not financially healthy right now. So I don't know if it has the money to produce the rest of this invoice, or even if it should. My position has been, when I first looked at this, is, well, why didn't the attorneys do a contract on this that clearly stated terms and conditions for the public, for anyone to review?
Can we just jump in here? Is that all right?
Anytime, yeah, so, please.
Just, I wasn't in the loop at the time, I guess. The 12,000 was given to the city by the county.
Yes, it was.
LAMC.
Okay.
The county.
I should know that, but
No, I don't either.
I'm asking it.
So I'm not a water person. Unfortunately, I grew up in Jamestown, from Jamestown, but never on the water. There is apparently a county fund specifically for these type of issues for water. I believe there's 4 water bodies or 5.
It's 2% money from.
Okay.
To be more specific, the county supports the Lake Erie Management Commission, and the funds, the $12,000 was requested of the Lake Erie Management Commission and was provided by the Lake Erie Management Commission, but the Lake Erie Management Commission funding comes from the county. So it wasn't paid directly by the county, it was paid by the Lake Erie Management Commission.
And to further on that,
I wasn't looking for right or wrong, I was just looking
For another.
where it came from, so that.
No,
yeah.
and we'll bring you up to speed even more, so the thought was too, is that 12,000 was gonna cover
Yes.
that cleanup,
The whole cleanup.
whole cleanup. So then last month they came to us and said, well, we want an additional 50,000 if you'd be so pleased to do so, and that will cover half, okay? And so then okay, so cover half. And they were gonna come up with the rest. And then at that time, the rest, I asked the question at the end of the meeting, well, what, they intended to not pay the rest. They wanted to negotiate it down to the 50. So really, in a sense, the county would be paying the whole bill, 50 plus the 12 they've already invested in Dunkirk. City of Dunkirk is still they haven't any skin in the game. But, so through this, the county has worked through this bad procurement policy. So in essence, we've been drug into this bad procurement policy. That's the short of it.
I find this interesting, because it says it's an invoice.
Yes.
It kind of looks like a statement for me, that's my prior non-government life.
Okay.
When I sent out an invoice, it said, you bought 8 hammers, 14 pounds of nails, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I had a hardware store, just
Oh.
so that was the invoice. Then the statement said you owed me $102.63. I don't see any break, I'm confused, I don't see what they did, especially when we go from 12,000 to 107,000. Did we take out 2 piers or 71 piers, or did we make 31 underwater cuts, and again, I don't know anything about this business, but it would be nice to know how many guys, how many hours, what the project was? Did we cut them to within 4 inches of the lake bottom, 12 inches? I'm being silly a little bit here.
No,
but,
in a
but
normal-
what the heck is $107,500?
What's it get us?
In the normal municipal contract world, you should have a scope of work that I'd present you.
Right.
We don't have that here.
Yeah, this is sort of, and maybe that's not our place to talk, I don't know.
No.
I'm gonna rest my case.
This is the conversation, this has been referred back to committees for this very purpose, to discuss it and also to present a direction that the county legislature is going to, should take. And so that's the discussion today, in the sense that, yes, we're gonna go off of, and help the city of Dunkirk, or do we get involved with the mess? So, that's the discussion.
Okay,
we're
all
having
right,
today.
we're good.
But, just a few months ago, when I became the majority leader, I reached out to the city of Jamestown, and I went with Shannon Barnhart from the airport, and I to speak to them about the airport itself, trying to establish, my goal was to establish a relationship that the county legislature would have with the cities. Now, I do recognize that I am the Republican majority leader, but that shouldn't matter. The city should have some type of relationship with their legislators. That meeting went fine. Pierre attended, PJ attended. I thought it went well. I call the city of Dunkirk. I get all kinds of problems. I still have yet even been able to talk to the mayor. I speak to the mayor's, her assistant there, her secretary. I think her name was Carol. Is her name Carol?
It is.
Yeah, nicest lady ever, but I said, okay, I'd like to come and do the same thing and talk about establishing that relationship. And it's not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's a relationship to the two largest cities. Nothing. They said they could give me 2 minutes, like we get 2 minutes for, privilege of the floor. I could go to speak to them. Now, in Jamestown, we were put on the agenda. We had an opportunity to speak. It was really there was a lot of back and forth conversation because not a lot of people know what's going on with the airport, which is fine. But I have reached out to them and kind of met with some obstruction, I'll just say that. Not necessarily friendly. Then when I see these, I'm thinking, holy smokes, what's going on up there? So, I believe I have made the attempt, and I'm not going to make another one. I called up there. I thought we should sit down. I'd like to sit down with the mayor and the council, more as a relationship builder, not necessarily this problem solver, but I do believe the legislature would be better off if we had relationships with both cities and whatever needs, because believe me, Jamestown's got problems too. Elliot represents both. I see him nod his house, he knows. But I'm just saying, Dunkirk seems to be in trouble now. So the olive branch had been extended. You'd think they'd have said, hey, maybe we ought to talk to this guy before this hits the fan. I guess that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, it's important to make that note, because if those channels had been established and discussed, situations and circumstances like this are easier. Agreed, point made, so.
Yeah, Dan, Elliot, I think that's something the city should take Mr. Wolfong up on if he's willing to talk to them and meet with them. I would suggest that it be done sometime soon.
Well, I apologize. I wasn't aware that you had reached out. If you would reconsider coming to the city of Dunkirk. I know it hasn't fallen into the lake yet.
Before that, I think you should talk to the city folks there and just
Make sure they
explain explain the situation and make sure it's okay to reach out to him and sit down and talk to him. Okay, as far as this this situation before us, okay, yeah, I think there's a lot of negligence on everybody's part here. Yet it is a bill. The county was in on this situation from the beginning. I'd like to see this resolved. I'd like to help the city of Dunkirk as much as we can. But to follow up on Dan's point, okay, so the bill is for $107,500. We've paid $12,000. We've got $95,500 left. Are you or somebody from the city negotiating with this company to get this down? And if you are, where do those negotiations stand?
So I know that there were negotiations with Mr. Bobstein, my predecessor. As
Okay.
far as my negotiations with this company have gone, they haven't gone very well due to the fact that there's still no scope of work type contract that was created. My position would be as legal counsel that if the county was kind enough to award $50,000, that I don't think it's no secret if you read the papers for the Dunkirk that my position has been the city of Dunkirk is insolvent, and if that this work was supposed to be done, it should have been put into a budget to be planned for a year in advance and done with full disclosure instead of just started during the summer of 2023. So that amount of money still does not exist in the city of Dunkirk's budget. So if something was negotiated, it would have to go into the budget for next year. And as you know, Assemblymember Goodell has worked on the Dunkirk Fiscal Recovery Act. That would be something that would have to be approved by the state office of the comptroller as well. So it's not an easy path for them to get the remainder of this money if the county would be willing to give $50,000. So the easiest legal option that I would offer would be please accept the county's $50,000 and sign a settlement agreement that this is, in full faith and payment of any bills that the city of Dunkirk may owe you to AK as you.
Sure.
Again, here we go, but, so the 12,000 was an invoice given to the city of Dunkirk from A&K Property Investments?
So the $12,000 originally, and I wasn't here during this time period, so
that's
it's
okay.
too much legal terms, but this is hearsay, is Director Joy or the city of Dunkirk department heads believed that this whole project would cost $12,000. So at that time, they approached the county legislature of the summer of 2023 for $12,000 out of the, and I'm sorry, Mr. Shango, the LEMC fund to pay for that $12,000 one-day cost for removing pilings. Obviously, we have an invoice for 8 days to remove the pilings, and when they originally made that ask, they did not contemplate 8 days worth of work. And I will say, under the city of Dunkirk's procurement policy, they didn't need to follow the procurement policy if it was under, I believe, $30,000. So they have a $12,000 issue in their minds back then. But obviously, we have $12,000 per day in this document and 8 days of work in this document, and no contract in between.
So, and I just want to make a comment. As a county legislator, I want to make sure I'm supporting the harbor and the lake, and I supported the cleanup for the benefit of the residents and the lake goers. And that has happened. And we helped them with what we thought was going to cost. Is it an issue still for the legislature for the mismanagement of the whole process? The lake work's been done, it's clean, the hazard's mitigated. Why would me as a legislator want to make a vote for the county that it is our problem to clean up a nightmare mess of paperwork and funding that wasn't right to begin with? And so that's my standpoint, that it would be easy for the city of Dunkirk if we paid the bill and said, consider this free and clear. And if this company actually would say, well, yeah, I'm going to take the $50,000 hit, or no, I'm going to take this back and I want the rest of my funds. So I understand bailing out a city or a local municipality, but also one that has a poor relationship with the county. And also we've tried to develop that.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also, this money is coming out of the occupancy tax, 2%. The 2%, which is, as we all know, why it exists. So it's not like we're just directly writing the check for this, if I can say that, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's coming out of a fund that's been created for projects like this. But I understand what you're saying also.
One of the things too is I want people to realize is that people that live in Dunkirk also live in Chautauqua County, and really, who's going to suffer here? The city's in some financial mess from previous administrations. How many times have we heard that? We've actually had small municipalities merge because of their financial issues, and it does seem to me that you're absolutely correct about the amount of money. And maybe there's some wording we could put into that they need to get their financial act together. or that relationship won't be a good one. But I don't want you to dwell on okay, so I don't want to walk away from that. The people, the hardworking people of the city of Dunkirk still are going to be under the thumb for that. And they are Chautauqua County residents too, and we have representatives from them.
And I understand with that, Dave, too, but also they're the ones that have inevitably voted in the individuals that are in control of the budget. So I don't mean it in a harsh way, but those are the painted facts. Okay?
I'll make my closing statement here. My big rub with this, Elliot, is, like I said before, we paid them 12,000. They want 107.5, and there's no detail as to what I would like to see. Bob Scudder, as a legislator,
Yes.
is a breakdown of the work that's been done. Specific, I want it billed out, not a statement. I want an invoice.
Yeah.
That's showing man hours.
All
It's
billable
showing
hours, right, man
equipment
hours.
used. What did they actually do? If they took out 17 piers or 11 piers, or, I'm sorry, I need the details before I feel I can move forward with any type of decision.
We gotta see something.
It's just has to be more spelled out than what I'm getting here. That's just me. I'm done. Go ahead.
Pierre, it looks like Pierre's been dying to say something.
Elliot, if I could be so bold as to ask your legal opinion,
Sure.
what do you anticipate would happen under two scenarios? Scenario number one, the county gives the city the $50,000. Obviously, the AK Marine is not fully satisfied. Scenario number two is the county gives the city $25,000. AK Marine is less fully satisfied. What would you envision happening between AK Marine and the city under those two scenarios?
Well, I think AK Marine's going to have to make some hedonistic calculus here as far as their cost of litigation. The city, in my opinion, is insolvent. So that doesn't make it good for, as someone who I was once a Buffalo landlord, which I'll never do again. Suing insolvent clients or suing insolvent parties is never a successful thing except if you're an attorney. It's not a winning proposition. So AK and Marine would then have to make the decision of, do we take this $25,000? I assume that this money will be held in some sort of account as it is right now. But do we take this money with a statement stating that we are going to take this money and walk away? Or do we decide that we are going to continue to hire our Buffalo-based attorney to come down here to the second floor of this building and litigate this issue, where you're going to hear from various department heads from the city of Dunkirk, as well as from their representatives about why no contract was done to begin with. And then maybe, in a year and a half or 2 years, Judge Hanlon will render her decision, and the city of Dunkirk will either have to pay or, per municipal law, village law, Article 4, if someone else is found to be responsible. And just by way of, just generally, if a county department head or if I go into a contract that's not approved by the legislature, the county executive, or city mayor, I could be personally held liable for that. So maybe the judge decides that some personal liability exists for a Dunkirk department head for going into a contract that they weren't authorized to do.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Let me put my interpretation on that.
Okay.
Under either scenario, there's a possibility that litigation between AK Marine and the city of Dunkirk would not proceed. So if that situation develops, that there is no litigation proceeding between AK Marine and the city of Dunkirk, the funds that the county of Chautauqua provided, be it $25,000 or $50,000, would not be going to bail out the city of Dunkirk. It would be going to bail out AK Marine.
Yes, and I will add the work was done by AK Marine.
Yes.
It seems to be everyone's kind of satisfied with the work that uses that section of the marina.
Yes.
So it would be going to bail out them.
Right. So I just wanted to highlight that because comments were made earlier about the city residents being county residents and supporting the city residents. what we would be supporting is AK Marine, not the city residents.
Well, yes, there's a certain level of AK Marine has responsibility. They started to do work without
Yes,
a contract, and they did work in excess of $100,000.
yes.
I would have a retainer agreement. I'm sure any of you would. I don't know what you gentlemen do for a living, but if you're doing some sort of work that's going to be a major issue, and for me, anything above probably $1,000 is a major issue at this point in my career, you're going to want to have a contract or something in writing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I know I was asking you to step out there a bit, so thank you.
No.
So now my second to last, or my last, that, yeah, is, along with the detail, can we get anything that would state that the city of Dunkirk was satisfied or that the work was complete?
Well, I can certainly contact AK Marine about that, their attorneys.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're questioning what they did, but I also want to know that the city was satisfied with the work that was done. Does that make sense?
Well, as far as the city being sastified with work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Or completed.
That the services being invoiced were actually completed.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the verification from the city that the detailed services on the invoice that Bob has requested, they verifying that the services were actually performed.
Yeah, Elliot, somebody should know that from the city, either the director of Public Works or Economic Development, somebody, I would have thought, would have overseen this project, so somebody from the city should know exactly what was done and completed.
They did, and that's one of the messy things with the litigation is, does that overseen work, does that constitute as agreement into a contract? Our position is under New York State law, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and that's a point taken is 'cause this invoice is for an hourly rate with the assumption that it was gonna be a $12,000 one-day project, but then someone standing on the side of the shore going after day 4 going 12,000 times 4 days, and how many more days do they have left? Based on this work that I'm seeing, this could add up quickly, and also now we're above our 30,000. They didn't say, whoa, wait a minute, we'd better hold off here. They just said, let's get the work done, and then we'll worry about it
In
later.
sports, we go like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So none of this was ever happening,
Request
and
a
that's,
change order or something. Jesus.
yeah, right. Yeah, so,
Yeah, somebody from the city should have been overseeing this,
Yes, and
the actual work done.
they were overseeing the actual work. But
Okay.
the problem is, to Mr. Scudder's point, there's no scope of work, so where does the work actually end?
that's right. Someone was overseeing, hey, look at it, it's great, they're doing their job. They didn't necessarily know that didn't have a contract. Who knew that this existed and where? Obviously, the guy watching the work being done didn't know the specific details, otherwise they might have,
It's interesting that we have a bid proposal with no bid.
Well, there was no competitive bidding, right? So that was another rub on the front end.
Isn't this a proposal?
Yes, but to your statement, Mr. Pavlock, under general municipal law, you have to go through a competitive bidding process.
Right.
Which was not had. Or conversely, have a statement to say that the work is such of a specialized nature, i.e. an attorney, that you want, this individual doing it or this company do the specialization.
correct, right. And none of that was followed at all, in the sense that the scope of work was never laid out officially. I would say scope was laid out because this company knew what it was gonna come in and do, but it wasn't done properly, and it wasn't put out to an official, City of Dunkirk didn't say, this is what we wanna do, and this is it, and we put it out for a bid process, and then a few companies come back. None of that was, none of that was ever defined or done, and so it just was like, well, but, it was under 30, but that, was this company misleading at all, right? And so that comes into argument, but who knows, I don't know. I think anyone that would look at the project would say it isn't gonna take one day to do that, it's gonna take 5, or 10. And that's where my comment earlier, you weren't here, was common sense. Common sense might judge here that say, well, 12,000 is awful light. I can look at a project, if I went down there and physically looked at it and said 12,000 isn't enough. Someone in the city of Dunkirk that would have known about this would have said the same thing, I would gather.
No, you know what I think too is that, believe it or not, that's because you're a very skilled technician and stuff. Believe it or not, those people that will usually like director or developers and stuff, they have an education on how to run that department, but they're relying on expertise by other people. So when you went down there and they cut the first set of pylons down, there should have been some type of communication going back saying, wait a second, this has been way underscoped. What's going on down there? I don't know. It doesn't sound to me like anybody was really looking into that ball. They were down there where I drove by, got some coffee, I see them working and that type of thing. But I think that to say, because you're a specialized, where you build houses for a living, so you would know that. The average person, I don't think, in a development director or vice director would actually know about roofing or foundations in your business or what goes on at decommissioning a dock or something like that. I mean, I'm just saying. The average person that's in City Hall probably doesn't know that.
Dan, I understand about the possibility of legal action against the city, and depending whether or not that comes about. I mean, and there's a question: are we bailing out the city or this contractor? But I think, Elliot, maybe what you should consider doing is contacting the contractor and just seeing what it would take to satisfy this invoice. I mean, they know what the financial situation of the city is. Again, I mean, it's 2% money that we're talking about. It's supposed to be designated for waterways. This, even though there's been some mismanagement here as far as this work done, it does indirectly benefit the county as far as the Dunkirk Harbor. So again, I mean, I'm not opposed to the county helping with this, but I'd like to see what it would take to satisfy this, and I'd like to see it negotiated down as low as you can.
Okay.
Any other comments? I want to synopsis this, and please add after to make sure I don't miss something. So, at this point, I feel that the Audit and Control Committee is not in a position to make a recommendation to the legislature of any sort. Doesn't mean that the legislature in a week doesn't have the ability to bring something if it so chooses. But the Audit and Control Committee is not. What we're asking for is information, and I've seen you've been taking notes, so Dave's first bit of information, or he wants to at least maybe potentially bridge a relationship. Mr. Scudder wants the information. He wants more information on the scope of work, if there was anything ever laid out, if there was more information related to the contract or details, any more detail. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe it does. Mr. Nebel wants to know, I'll tie in Mr. Shagnon's comments and Mr. Nebel's, that what will it take to satisfy the company and clear the city of Dunkirk? If we gave them 50,000, are they going to still litigate? If we give them 25,000, are they going to still litigate? We hate to be in the negotiation setting, but we're setting the terms, so it's tricky, right? We'd rather give them 25, and is that going to satisfy them?
And my position is they have no legal standing because they didn't follow New York State General Municipal Law 103. So I think to that point, it's one of those fairness determinations for the county legislature to make.
Okay, Elliot, yes, legally you're probably correct, but this is a contractor. The work was done. It was done for the city of Dunkirk. What kind of precedent is it going to set for other contractors? Again, I mean, there's...
Is this the type of contract that this company typically puts out, or was this a special situation?
I'm not sure.
That's what Judge Hanlon's going to look at that also and say, well, shame on you, company A&K Marine, for doing business this way. It shouldn't have been done.
Yeah.
So they have a lesson to be learned too. I'm just, okay.
It's, you know, it's a question of, you know, as a municipal attorney, you never want to have the reputation for stiffing a contractor. Yet at the same time, you know, my client's insolvent. So, that's,
Elliot, does A&K Marine do a lot of work for the city of Dunkirk?
to my knowledge, this is the first time
Okay.
it had worked for the city of Dunkirk. There had been, and as you can tell, it's an out-of-state company, so it hasn't worked with New York State General Municipal Law. That's where my recommendation is pay the attorneys, though of course I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So I do know the city of Dunkirk previously worked with companies out of Detroit, but this seems to be the first time that it worked with a Pennsylvanian company.
Okay.
And I know that their initial attorneys were out of Erie, Pennsylvania, though they have contracted with a New York attorney now. Fun stuff, though, right? That's-
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other information that I missed in the synopsis of information that we're looking for feedback?
If I can just sum it up, we are looking for a scope of work, and if there is no scope of work at the first start, we're gonna have a summary of work that was done. We are looking for, you know, what we could settle the contract for, or what the lowest amount of settlement is to avoid litigation. And
Dave wants to sit down.
Dave wants to sit,
Oh,
that's
no, no,
easy
no,
enough
no.
to do.
I just want to say that I didn't even know this was going to be on the agenda because my computer I wouldn't print it, so it wasn't even, I didn't know this coming in here. But I have reached out to them before. It was successful in Jamestown, and I still think whether I'm doing it or not, it's important that the cities have some type of representation or people they can go to, their own legislators, if they have issues. And now, I was trying, before I went on vacation for a month, I'll be the first to tell you, that Carol couldn't be nicer. However, I never really got a meeting. She said I could come and speak to their privilege of the floor. It was difficult to do business with them. Now, maybe they were hesitant to have me come, and I didn't mean it that way. And I'm not the party, their party. I get that. But that relationship still needs to be something that I think that goes down from this legislature, this group, to the next year, because they are the two largest cities, you know, in the county. I think we should have an open door policy, or at least, I bet they don't even know who I am. They will when you get there. And why is the legislator from the city of Jamestown calling Dunkirk? Because that relationship, I believe, is needed. I'll shut up.
Let me turn my timer.
All right.
No, and I think, you know, I'm not speaking for anyone, but I believe that the county executive is, you know, had challenges in developing a relationship as well. And I think that the county government wants to have you know, is open to a relationship with the city of Dunkirk in any means possible. And I know I can only speak for myself that a relationship between the city, all cities and all villages is very important. If any municipality in my district came for help and was in need, I would hope that the county would consider it. But I would hope also that those municipalities followed the rule in this decision. If the city of Dunkirk had followed all the rules and you came to us and said, we need 50,000, I think that the county would have said, okay, here it is. Nothing was followed, and it's all a mess, and the county's very hesitant, and it's been kicked down the road a couple months. So let's see next month if we can come to some resolution and put it behind us and move forward. So,
Yeah.
That's fair.
Elliot, it wouldn't hurt to have a rapport with the county and especially the legislature, because based on what you're telling us as far as the financial situation with the city of Dunkirk, it sounds like you'll probably be back here talking to us sometime in the future, or a Dunkirk representative. So it probably wouldn't hurt to have those lines of communication.
Yeah, I assume I'll be back here as we progress, and, you know, with the Dunkirk Fiscal Recovery Act, and, you know, we've asked to meet with the county executive. It's just tough to get everyone together at this point.
Sure.
I'm sorry, did I say Dunkirk County I mean the county executive.
Well,
and the Dunkirk
we know
mayor.
what you meant.
All
So,
right.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for coming in today and discussing this matter. It's important to the county.
Ball's in your court.
all right, well, I will, Mr. Wolfong, I will email you with the dates for the Dunkirk Common Council meetings.
Okay.
I think probably that's the best, instead of me trying to herd the 5 of them, or 6 of them, mayor plus 5.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we can do like a special meeting beforehand or afterward, whatever works. I know you're like me, you drive up from the South County, so,
Like you said, yeah, you just email me those, we'll pick something out,
okay.
and we'll put something together.
And then, obviously, you gentlemen are also invited. I will say the chef at the Clarion has made quite the fusion. He's an Indian chef. He's made a fusion Indian-Polish cuisine now that you can ask for, which I think it's very unique to this area, and I have a great time. I've spent a lot of money at the Clarion's kitchen. So, that's,
Indian Polish.
Yeah, there you go.
spicy pierogies. So,
Good deal.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Or
Okay.
thank you, gentlemen.
Another agenda item, I believe it's the last item on the agenda today, is a compliance report from our HR director.
Been here the whole time, too. Just, I was getting ready to go.
Oh, I gotta get going, so.
No, I'm kidding. I got it.
It should only take about an hour.
Gee.
Thank you.
You're kidding.
I was kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Please.
This is a thrilling topic.
This is a compliance report that is required for this committee
Correct.
to review on a yearly basis, correct?
Correct.
So this is going to suffice for our compliance office report, and I guess I wish that to be documented in the minutes for that this is happening. And please carry us forward.
I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. Debbie Mikowski, Director of Human Resources. Yes, this is the compliance report, basically covering tasks and I don't want to call them issues, but various topics that were covering the 4th quarter of 2023 and the 1st quarter so far of 2024. So as you stated, this is a requirement under the law. There is specific language where this report is required to be a discussion item, not simply a submitted report. In addition, failure to comply with the requirement places a large financial risk to the county. So going forward, just to keep up on the reporting structure and to keep the report in a somewhat manageable size, I plan on providing this report, having the discussion item on the agenda every 6 months. So getting into the report,
Excuse me, Debbie, the reason that you provide this report to the Audit and Control Committee is because of the enormous potential liability to the county of violations of compliance requirements.
correct, for not reporting and discussing, yes.
Right.
Yes. So you'll see the report is sort of categorized by 5 different topics. First one, of course, being the annual training. There was another training module, which had a deadline of March 31st. About 14 modules within that group. I believe you all would have been assigned through NeoGov.
While it's fresh on our memories, does anyone have any comments related to that? It seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And is it all necessary? I just want to be blunt about it.
Yes, yes. So to be very pointed, yes, it is absolutely necessary. Full disclosure, there's another round coming next week. This is all basic safety related that is required annually.
There's 6 safety topics, as simple as emergency evacuation, fire safety, basic lockout tagout. I believe all of the videos are, I think the longest one is maybe 20 minutes. So some of them are even 5 minutes, and they are not in depth, but again, they are required under OSHA standards, which we're not covered under OSHA, but Public Employee Safety Hazard, PESH, mirrors off of OSHA. So it is required.
And this is new, Debbie?
It is new.
Okay, because the other 14 modules, that's pretty much the same thing every year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. And you know, and what we're trying to do is, you know, I have seen company trainings handled various ways. Either you send out every single one of them all at once and you have a period of time to complete them, or you break them up into chunks like the county has been doing, and you know, it's a little more manageable that way.
It's easier.
It is,
for us.
but it's still, that frustration is still there when you just get done. I just finished my training in NeoGov, and now there's more coming. It feels like this
safety
never
training.
ending. Yes.
Bob?
As a legislator who embraces the training and looks forward to these modules coming out, somebody must have known that, because I got informed that I hadn't taken 2 of them, and I got to take them again, which I scored tremendously better on my testing. And the reason I knew that was I wasn't sure until the questions came out, and I went, so I guess in the future, I spoke to Pierre about it, just for, again, I embrace this training, and I look forward to it in an odd way. I guess I'm gonna print out my certificates of completion from now on, just so that I have that in case they want me to do it again. Then maybe I could say, I think I've already done this one. Is that how I should handle that?
Were they all through NeoGov?
Yeah. I only had to take 2 of them over, which again, it was fantastic because it refreshed everything that I might have forgotten about those modules.
A couple of them were kind of similar, I'll say, but it seems like it didn't happen to me this year, but last year I had to retake one, and it was a long one. And I was a little disgruntled about it, but I worked my way through it.
Well, I'm proud of how high I score on the tests.
That's on
And
the
some
Was that
tests,
the cybersecurity?
some tests, I was the
The
only one that
cybersecurity.
passed it on the first try.
I don't know if you were the only
Well, I
one
know,
on the first
I know someone in
try.
this, in our, sitting here that didn't pass it, that we all thought probably would have.
Are you looking at me?
No, no.
Well, I actually had to call the IT department to have them help me pass it. I took the
You
dumb
could have
thing
called
10
me, Dan.
times.
Next time, call me. I can help you through that stuff.
I did
But
too.
anyhow,
I did too.
it was interesting to get it twice. It's not a complaint, it's
Yeah,
just,
and that should not happen.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, because it's normally assigned to the email address, and we keep it in the group. So
Yeah.
within the group, there's different
Yeah.
modules, and that is assigned to the email address, unless something had changed where you did it right away, and then it
Oh, I do 'em
was
right
changed
away.
and updated, and then you were
Yeah.
assigned it again.
Well, it's not a complaint. Like I said, I enjoyed doing it as much the second time as I did the first time.
Glad to
So,
hear that, because
yeah.
there's more coming next week.
But it might be a good idea for me to print out the certificate of completion, and then I could at least say,
Hanging on your walls.
I've spent a lot on framing them. That's been the only rub I have is it's gotten very costly to frame all the certificates, but it looks good on the wall. Yeah.
Put them in a notebook.
And if you run into that, all seriousness, if you run into that situation again where you think, I've already done this training, reach out to me or Kathy in my office.
Okay.
And we can look back in your history in NeoGov, and if you have recently completed it and it's an error, she can physically remove that
Okay.
module from your email.
Thanks for listening to me.
That takes longer to do, though, than to just take the model again sometimes to get it cleared from you.
Sometimes.
I let this banner go on because I'm sure that we are not the only ones in this room that have this feeling. We have a lot of employees in the county that I'm sure that it could be a break room discussion.
Absolutely.
I understand and I value the importance of the testing, and I just want to make sure we're doing what we need, and it's the most efficient way that we can be doing it. This is the discussion. Next year, when I take the tests again and I get my NeoGov email, I'll say, well, I did ask the questions this last year. I do get harassed a little bit by emails. You have not completed your NeoGov training yet, please do so. And I always find it harassing that I will do it. I know the deadline. I don't need to be harassed 10 times through email. So I think you can control the email a little bit.
Email harassment.
I feel that it is.
Yes.
You haven't done your training yet.
Yes.
Do it again. You haven't done your training. I get 15 emails, and I'm like, I'll get to it.
So
I know the deadline.
So we did recently update the notifications within NeoGov. And it's one of the main reasons why we went with a module. So we group all of the training sessions, because then within NeoGov, they think it's only one assignment. So you'll get one email at the specific notification points when we say an email should go out. If we left it all separate modules, you would get that email times however many. So this last one, it was 14 modules, you would get 14 emails referencing each training module name. So we've taken that step, understanding that it's email overload. So we've grouped all of the modules, and I believe we've set the reminders at 30 days before the deadline, maybe 15 days, 10 days, and then it reverts to every day leading up to the deadline.
Is that a form of harassment?
No.
I feel that it is. I feel that I know the deadline. I don't need to be reminded repetitively. It's harassment. And I always feel that way. I really do.
Okay, I do not, and I just want to go on record saying that I appreciate every one of those. You'd be surprised, those things come in all over the world. You could be in Thailand and them damn things pop up, doing nothing.
All right. Point taken. I might not be the only one.
It's
Allegedly.
important.
I'm the only one that will speak up about that.
I look forward to it.
It needs to be done, so.
You get all the notifications about your training, but then the department head gets the trainings for every single person that they receive, that they haven't done any of their trainings.
And then you send it out, a reminder also, and we've already.
So they're getting 19 reminders for 19 people.
That's why when it lands on my computer, I do it.
In your own time, before the deadline, you don't need to be reminded.
I drop everything I'm doing.
Okay. Section number 2, Compliance Committee.
So Compliance Committee, we are continuing to meet every other week, kind of wrapping up a required policy review, policy implementation plan. We did have 3 policies and procedures that were finalized within the last 6 months. We have 2 more left to go. Actually, I think within the last couple of weeks, we did finalize one of those. It was pretty exciting for the committee to be down to 1 policy and procedure left to do. Moving on to number 3, breach/incident report. I'm probably going to change that title to include complaints, because there are 2 items, but they are simply client complaints. Came through OTDA SNAP Civil Rights, 2 clients, 2 very different complaints. Worked with individuals within the division to properly respond and reply to the to SNAP Civil Rights. We're just waiting for their final response from our investigation and report that was submitted for both. Moving down to audits, there were 6 audits completed. And you'll see, various either corrective action is in place or corrective action was submitted and pending the oversight approval. There were others that, didn't have any deficiencies. and others that, you know, what they would call in place of a corrective action, their terminology is a performance improvement plan. That's not to say that there were necessarily high-level deficiencies found. It's just that's their terminology in lieu of a corrective action plan. And then last topic is just kind of covering focus going forward for the next 2 quarters. So we will finalize the remaining 2 compliance policies and procedures. Again, back to countywide training, ensuring that that is 100% complete. I believe we're still working through some lingering individuals to finish their training from the March 31st deadline. More action from the compliance committee work plan and finalizing the last sections following policy and procedure review and implementation. And then, as I discussed first, the next group of countywide trainings to include the 6 safety training topics, and I believe the lingering 2 compliance policies and procedures. We're going to roll those through training just for awareness and acknowledgement. So, I mean, the next round of training should be relatively quick and painless.
I do have one, if I may.
Yeah.
There was that one training on the IT security that I know some of my fellow legislators struggled with. What would happen, I'm going to be serious just for a second here. What if you couldn't pass one? What happens? I mean, do you get removed from office, or? I know that doesn't sound like it would happen, but what if you just couldn't hit that 70% or whatever?
I'm not sure. I don't necessarily think that there would be a situation where you wouldn't pass the test. Because if it came down to it, we would meet with the individual.
You could take the test with somebody.
Review all of the course material, sit and go through the test again, and sort of make it a discussion item in order to pass the test.
Just, you never know.
Right.
And it'd end up being me, so I'd be the one going.
I'm going right after the meeting, so don't worry.
No, but I mean, okay.
Only you.
Serious question,
Right.
What happens?
Right.
The girls help you. The young lady sat next to me and helped. I couldn't pass it either.
We can
I'm
ask
not
that
into
question.
computers.
Okay. Terry, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, Deb, we used to have a compliance officer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, she retired.
Correct.
We don't have a replacement yet?
That is me.
That is
currently.
you?
Yes.
So you're doing, okay.
Correct.
Okay, you're doing human resources plus compliance?
Correct. I have a great team who is helping me with everything at this point.
I'm
yes.
sure you do, but do we intend to fill that compliance
Absolutely.
officer? Okay,
Yep.
at some
Yes.
point in time.
Well, it is out there on our county website. We are actively recruiting to fill the position.
It's been vacant for a while though, right?
Since Deb's retirement, yes.
6 months?
No, since May of last year.
Almost a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just no takers for this?
Lack of qualified individuals to date. I'm hoping that will change.
People have applied, we just haven't found them qualified?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
At
Thanks.
what point do you quit hoping that someone will fill the position, or don't you? And,
Yeah, and to be honest, at this point, I am moving forward as if this is just another
Part of the job.
part of my responsibility. Yes, if we find someone,
Great.
yes, but I need to move forward to mitigate any potential risk for the county.
could it be added? You've done it. I mean,
Right.
so like, we've had this discussion. We were originally hiring a safety and training officer.
Mhm.
Okay, we hired the position, and then we decided to add it to an existing position and make the adjustments. Is that a potential in this situation?
That has been part of an ongoing discussion. at what point do we make that decision, just to do away with the separate title and lump it under the responsibility of the HR director title?
And I suppose it doesn't can put any sort of conflict in position, is that the right place to put it?
Yeah, I don't think there would be conflict, and I think we have a good system in place. If there ever is a situation where there is a conflict, it would then revert to between the county executive and the county attorney.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's part of our discussion because it's a position and it has how this is all orchestrated. So we've been without a compliance officer per se.
Right.
Not that you haven't done a fine job.
Thank you.
So we want to thank you for the extra work that you have had to do.
Thank you.
And you weren't hired to be the compliance officer, were you?
I was not.
So you've accepted the position. So thank you. And
Is Bob Scudder applied for the position? Because he seems to be up on this NeoGov training. I'm just curious.
Not to my knowledge.
I think someone, if they chose not to do the compliance reports, would have a valid case that there's no compliance officer to hold them accountable. Are you an official compliance officer?
I
Is it
am at
written
this
down?
point, yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
I think I could argue that.
Technical
Anyway, when this next section of training comes out, I might try it.
I wouldn't.
Olivia, let me know.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. We
Okay,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
coming in. Thank you for being patient. Any other business for the committee today? And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.